Hello. Hello. No. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I am your host, Kivanchi, bringing you Hello, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I am your host, Kivanchi, bringing you all things update, new, exciting, and thrilling in both film and television. Today, we will be discussing Season 1 of The Newsreader, starring Anna Torv and Sam Reid. Let's get into the thrills, chills, and the deep themes and plots behind what makes The Newsreader so successful. Hi guys, welcome back. Of course, I had to come back from vacation. I mean, it was no absence for you all, but it was an absence for me. For those of you watching, don't I look tan? I got at least a half a shade darker, and I love that so much. Where's my ring? Jesus Christ. So yeah, I'm back from vacation. I went to Grand Cayman and went to Jamaica. That was a really good time. I was away for 10 whole days, but you know, gots to do what I got to do. You're gonna be planning in advance, making sure I get all of the updates and the news and everything for y'all without missing a beat, and while also getting to have a life. But we are back to life, back to reality, with so many new shows coming out, so many updates. There's so much. I did all of February, and here we are in March of 2025, getting ready to continue going strong in Q1. We have let's see, by the time you all see this, the Oscars will be tonight. I actually get to go to a film center. It's a local indie film center, and we get to watch it all together live. We also put in our ballots for who we think could win for some prizes. Your girl put in her vote, so wish me luck, send good vibrations as you're listening to this and as you're watching this. Yeah, let's see what else has been going on. I'm trying to think what else is going on. I don't think there's too much. No. So let's just jump right into it. So, okay, y'all, les Américains, The Newsreader. All right, let me just tell you, let me just be honest, and let me just be transparent. I came to The Newsreader because of Sam Reid, okay? I came because I have like a tiny, non-hyper parasocial obsession with Sam Reid. My fiance already knows about this. We already had our talk. We had our conversation. I just feel like his energy and my energy would get along so well. And I think that if we ever met each other, we would literally be like really good friends. I genuinely believe that his acting, and I'm gonna get more into it at the end when I share my thoughts about the whole season, but we are watching like something happen. Like when the Marlon Brandos became the Marlon Brandos, when the Meryl Streeps became the Meryl Streeps, when Viola Davis became Viola Davis. And you know, if you're somebody who really watched film and television and watching that in real time, not necessarily the number of things that you see a person star in, but watching their growth and their progress and how much they continue to expand their artistry, we are watching Sam Reid, our Australian princess, do something rather extraordinary that feels very like old Hollywood, very much like what Hollywood probably initially set out to do before it became like a popularity contest type of thing, and like the machine that it is, we're watching somebody who is a student of the industry. And it's just so beautiful to watch. So the Newsreader season 1, we will be going over each episode briefly, and we're going to end up talking about all of the major plots, all of the major themes. We're going to talk about Sam specifically. We're going to talk about certain things that come up in each episode. We're going to talk about some of the characters as well. And I hope that y'all are just as excited by the end of this to watch it. Season 1 is streaming on AMC Plus if you have it. Season 2 and Season 3 are out. The series is complete, and if you're in Australia or somewhere where you can get like iView, and I think if you're on Apple TV in those countries, you can watch them. But hopefully by the end of this whole recap and review, you're just as excited about wanting to tune in and to consume it as an American audience, because it's just really, really good. And I think that with the number of episodes that they do each season, I believe it's 6, most 6 episodic seasons don't really like hit the mark. And with season 1, knowing that there's a season 2 and season 3, if they would have left it right here as like a mini series, it would have still been just as powerful, just as explosive, and just as beautiful. So let's go ahead and get into some stuff, okay? So going into IMDb, so the Newsreader was written and created by Michael Lucas. Like I already said, it stars Anna Torv and Sam Reid. So the plot, or the logline: in the 1980s, an embattled anchorwoman and an ambitious reporter confront studio politics and their own desires as they navigate the cutthroat world of Australia's news media. One of the interesting things that I liked about the show and the premise of the show is how much actually goes into producing news for people. And one of the things that you see in episode 1 of this season is an event that News at 6 station decided to cover, which kind of marked the transition of how Australia traditionally delivered news, while incorporating the way that America delivers news, kind of blending the entertainment of it all and getting away from the seriousness and the monotony of just like droning on. Like, how can news be exciting, and how can we push deep topics and things that the Australian public should be taken seriously, but putting it in a way that's palatable to them and to get them to rally around the cause to continue to drive the narrative forward. So I just love how episode 1, I guess we're just diving right on in without my notes, how episode 1 kind of frames the season and frames the way that the people who work there are trying to occupy a space and not necessarily compete with American news, but numbers are dropping, okay? And the public in Australia, you know, I'm pretty sure they have access to what's going on in the U.S. As we know, even now in 2025, the U.S. is kind of like the marker for how things move. And we know that in the U.S., you know, Black America and the way that we tell stories drive the narrative in the way that media tells stories. So it's very apparent that Australia has a pulse on what's going on in the world, and not just delivering Australian news, because I think, like, as we open up, there was a story about a koala bear or some shit like that, but not just talking about like Australian news, like, oh, what's going on here. It's like, no, what's going on in the world that will affect how we live in our bubbles. Like, we need to start paying attention to life outside of the country that we live in. And they were kind of moving towards making the Australian public more of like advocates and ambassadors for global, national and global politics. and national and global crises. There it is. So now that we kind of set the mood, okay, we gonna set the mood right. We're gonna dive right into our notes. I'm so excited. I honestly can't wait to get to the end. But anyways, okay, boom. Episode 1 of the Newsreader. Let's go into it. Let's give you the names. So episode 1 is titled 3, 2, 1. Okay, on my hand. I learned so many behind the scenes like production cues from this. I love it so much. So episode 1 titled 3, 2, 1. Things that we're kind of discovering in the episode. And again, another quick disclaimer. I know I'm all over the place. I won't be doing like, I think I mentioned it, but I will not be doing like a step-by-step recap. These are 6 50-something minute long episodes. We cannot do this. I'm not about to sit here for a 6-hour podcast episode. Like, we're not going to do that. But there's going to be enough here to where you get a sense of the season. And again, hopefully by the end you go to AMC Plus. This is not sponsored. I'm not getting paid. Did nobody reach out to me? Y'all already know this by now. This is the 99th episode. If you don't know by now, I simply just love film. I love television. I love acting. I love all of it that goes into this. So yeah, that's why I'm here. All right, so boom. Episode 1 basically is going to show you Dale, played by Sam Reid, is a mess. Helen, played by Torv, is a mess. Okay. We're also introduced to Geoff, who's the senior chair at the desk. He's been working at News at 6 for 30 years, and he's really like the antagonist of the season, mainly because he represents like the old way. Like, we've been doing it this way. It doesn't need to change. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Helen, who is his co-anchor, she's younger, she's fresher, she's sharp. Her background was a game show host, or like a game show girl, which Geoff's wife continues to bring up and try to use as if she's not credentialed enough to actually be a newsreader at the desk, which is like the pinnacle of news reading. So you have a bunch of producers who work in teams with the sound and with the cameramen. And then you have your field specialists who go out and report on the scene for all the different locations. They're given their assignments. And then you have like sports, you have weather, and then you have like the desk reporting live in Givenchy's living room. In today's breaking news, the weather is a biting 13 degrees outside. That's right, kids. Make sure you bundle up. And if you have pets, make sure you put those jackets on and try putting those little booties on the ground. If you wouldn't like to go outside with your bare feet touching the ground, neither does your dog. So let's make sure that we're staying warm, guys. Like, those are the people that are like the famous people at the newsreader, right? That's like where you want to be. And once you're there, you want to get tenured, right? As a kid, I did not watch the news, but my grandparents loved going to the news, like at specific times so they could see specific people. And I didn't really understand that, but watching this show and seeing that Jeff's character was there for 30 years, it's like you build a trust with your audience. And so then your audience kind of has a relationship with the people at the desk. How do they change their tone and deliver this news? Are we delivering such a tragedy today? Or did we find something today that's new and exciting and it's moving us into 21st century? You know what I mean? So like they end up narrating and navigating the feelings of everybody watching them through the TV screens or listening to them through the radio. And in a sense, it's like your original podcasting, like for real, for real. So I thought that this was a really exciting premise of a show while navigating us through some of the biggest things that's happening in the 80s, right? So Lindsay, who's like their boss, I guess like a step below the CEO, he's a fun character. He's so erratic. He screams a lot. I'm surprised we don't end the season with him having like an aneurysm or a heart attack, because all he does is scream. Like the blood pressure has to be through the roof, but like love him as a character. Okay, so what ends up happening in the first episode, like one of the biggest things that goes into the first episode, is Dale is a producer, and he's a really good producer. He can fix any, like almost any disaster that's happening behind the scene on the spot and save the day. But Dale has been wanting his entire life to be a newsreader. He wants to be at the desk, and he wants to be given a chance. And he practices at home, he practices his voice, he records himself, he keeps all the tapes of not only himself, but everything that he also produces as well. Like, quick segue into Sam, quick segue into myself, and a segue into a lot of great actors: Denzel Washington, Viola Davis, Samuel Jackson, Meryl Streep, oh my god, Don Cheadle, the one lady whose acting style is not necessarily method. She blends like all of the acting styles together. She's the one that drives, I have to look this up, because her method is the closest thing that I think a lot of people use today as they approach theater, specifically, and how you can translate how you act on stage to acting in front of a camera. Okay, give me a second. Acting coach who combines all methods to approach a scene. Y'all watching this live. I'm gonna do this. Ooh. Wait. No. Let me look this up. Let me look up the acting techniques, because it's named after her. I do like the Stanislavski method. There it is. Uta Hagen. Uta Hagen focuses on authenticity and realism and emphasizes the importance of using personal experience and emotions to create believable and powerful performances. Hagen was one of the most renowned and respected acting teachers of the 20th century. So the reason I bring up Uta Hagen is because Dale's character, he wants to be in this space. It's not just a dream of like, oh man, I want to do this. I think I could do that. You know how you sit at home and you're just like, oh, I think I could do that. And you try it a little bit and like you kind of get it. And you're just like, oh, that's the catalyst for me going in here thinking that I can outshine people who've been doing this for 2 decades, 3 decades, right? And so Dale's approach to his dreams, while he is awkward, while he needs a lot of help, he's doing the things to be prepared for that moment. And so I say all of the other people, including myself, and how I approach things because I'm in this industry, and how Sam approaches these things. I feel like Dale takes the Uta Hagen approach in his studies to what he wants to do, and I feel like maybe Sam didn't necessarily apply this approach per se as he was getting into the character of Dale, but it's like present and it's palpable. Again, those personal experiences and those personal emotions of being vulnerable and being laid bare and knowing that you could be cut and shred to pieces, but you're still going to go out and do this thing because that's what you want to do. And so I imagine Sam's foray into acting, being younger, being the person who had like horrible cystic acne, but still wanting to get in front of a stage and allow everybody to see him in a way that he probably felt was his ugliest, but he's still trying to pursue this thing and trying to go to this thing. And you have Dale knowing that he has a hard time talking to people. His hair looks a mess. He comes from this small town in Bendigo where nobody really has any dreams whatsoever. But he continues to go to Lindsay, who just screams and yells all day and says, I want to do this. Give me a chance. I want to do this. Give me a chance. He's getting teased by his coworkers, teased by the camera crew, all types of stuff. But he continues to go. And so I just feel like the approach to Dale's character and the way that Dale is very Uta Hagen. Okay. So, big things in episode 1. Dale claws his way to get a chance to report the news. right? One of the sweetest things to come out of this episode, and it literally made me tear up, y'all, was when he called his mom and he's like, Mom, I get to like get this opportunity and all of this stuff. And he's like, okay, I gotta practice. So then he's like recording himself. He's going over and he's doing he's doing all the vocal exercises, and all of the things, right? And to see the childlike innocence of this opportunity was just so amazing. Another big thing that happens in this episode is Helen. Helen is full of anxiety. She's full of depression. You just see immediately a woman who is a powerhouse in the thing that she does, fighting to earn respect, knowing that everybody doesn't respect her, and she walks into a room with her head held high anyway, because at the end of the day, what you cannot take away is not only her natural ability, but also the work that she puts behind to back up her natural ability in front of the camera with words and all these other things. But you know, they giving her grief, so she don't give them grief back. Like, you're not going to be a dick to her and expect her not to be a bitch back. And so while they do all these things and they say all these things behind her back, and you know, women in the workplace having to do everything and having to be perfect, what you can't take away from her is the fact that she's better than every single one of y'all in the room. And so having to be perfect with some underlying feelings of anxiety and depression and something that we don't really know that's kind of brewing underneath that, we see Helen kind of going through a situation that puts her at her lowest. And in this, Dale, being who he is and kind of hearing about it and just being a very kind and benevolent man, is very worried about her, and he finds her in this state, and he's scared, he's terrified, and you know, he does what he needs to do to get her the help that he needs, and he stays. And he's concerned, he doesn't want her to be alone, so he's like, listen, pack you some bags. You know, if there's things in your house that's kind of reminding you of like whatever is going on in your life, you don't have to tell me, but I want you to stay with me. And I want to make sure that you're okay. And he's just so attentive and just so kind. And Helen has never felt this before. She damn sure wasn't getting it from a man at News at 6. And during all of this, Dale gets his time at the desk, and you know, Tim, which is the cameraman that he works with all the time, like that's his production team behind the scenes, and they're like, listen, you know, just relax, you know, da da da. And Dale is so nervous that he's just like, today on News at 6 we have a mom, da 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 da, and he's like shooting words out of his mouth like an Uzi, guys. And does it go well? No. Dale, Jesus Christ. So Dale gets home, and he taped it, because he tapes everything, and he's like trying to keep Helen from watching it, but she's like, no, like I want to see, right, you know. And she's watching it, and she laughs at him, but instantly you can tell that it's not like a laugh of like, wow, you need to find another passion because this is not for you. It's a laugh that says, I can see that there's something to work with, so let me help you. Because at this point, Dale's been doing everything by himself. Again, he can talk to people, but there's a confidence that he doesn't have. So the first thing she does, his hair. So she's fixing his hair, and y'all say I'm so fine. Sam Reid is so fine. The way that his hair is, it's kind of like a really fucked up beaver, like beaver, Justin Bieber look, right? Kind of like half, but not like super swooped. But she just takes it and she just pushes it away from his face, and you get to see those prominent brows and that jawbone, and like the mandible and the cheekbones and all these other things. But as she's doing it, there's this tenderness in her that nobody has ever seen, right? And Dale responds. I don't even think he realizes how he responds to this tenderness and to this kindness. And this goes back like blushing like a motherfucker. So to me, I think this is a Samism, because Dale does this in this show with 2 separate people, and Lestat does this with Louis all throughout Interview with a Vampire. And so Sam has this signature longing, angsty look, but he's able to wield it in a way that comes off as completely unaware, like in Dale. Dale is, his eyes are looking at Helen like, oh my God, like somebody I look up to is trying to help me, right? That's what his eyes are saying. But his mouth is kind of having its own subconscious reaction to a touch that can be deemed very intimate. Whereas as his portrayal as Lestat, it's like a open, like when he was sitting on the bed, y'all, when Louis swam in Mississippi, it's an open lust, an open love, an open agonizing angst and longing for Louis. It's laid bare. His mouth, his eyes, his eyebrows, everything in his face are all aligned with his body language, which denotes his arousal. But in Dale, they're disconnected, right? But Helen, she don't see it, but she's just like, you know what? You kept me from the brink of my own destruction. Okay, so cool. So she has him read a script, and now they're just working through it, and she's like, okay, slow down here. Bring your voice down. I don't understand why you're talking like Elmo, but let's not do that. Settle into your vocal cords, settle into your timbre, settle into your tone. And they're just having a good time. And so like for the first time you see Dale with a mentor, and for the first time since meeting Helen, you see Helen the woman and not Helen the newsreader. And I thought it was just such a beautiful episode with episode 1. Another thing that happens here, which is historic, and there's a few episodes where some historic events are going on, and I thought they integrated this so seamlessly. The space shuttle that had the teacher that went on the space shuttle, and they live streamed it on TV. News at 6 was they did a special on the teacher, and they interviewed her, and they did all these other things. And they were looking up everything. So everybody's gonna cover this, you know, it's like a huge event. We're sending a civilian to space. And that was the year where the space shuttle went off, everything sounded good, and then boom, it immediately like exploded in the air. And everybody was lost on board. So we're back at the news station, and there's this big event that's happening, and it's kind of the catalyst where Helen was, you know, pushing to move forward with certain stories, and Lindsay fighting back, and, you know, talking about the CEOs, nobody want to hear that, and all these other things. You get this event where even Geoff, who, you know, is kind of like a little hater, you know what I mean? Everybody's kind of like all on board, like, no, we have to push this, and we have to discuss the families, we have to discuss the children and how this affects the people, even at home, even that weren't there. And so from there, we are seeing the newsreader, News at 6, take new form and new shape in episode 1. I'm fangirling. I'm fangirling about the show as well as Sam. Like, I called my fiance and I was just like, you know, I love Sam and everything that he does. I'm almost done with his entire filmography. The show, the way that the characters, that the actors are not themselves. Like, it's like, oh, I'm coming to see Sam because, I don't know, you got a crush on Sam. You don't see Sam. Like, you don't see Sam. You see Dale. You see it in the way that he walks. It's like clunky, and his clothes, he drowns in them. It's like he doesn't want to be seen at all, even though he's desperate to be seen. So there's a dichotomy to who Dale is on the inside and what he presents on the outside, and the physical acting that goes into this character is just, it completes the transformation fully, like fully. Going into episode 2, which is titled Once in a Lifetime. Okay, we actually move kind of like forward in these episodes. I love that they're 55 minutes. I think they're all like 55 minutes each, because you have like an internal like TV show clock. Like, you ever be watching an episode and then you like hit a button to see how much time is left, because you're just like, this has to be the end, or like, this can't be the end. I did that with almost every episode, because I'm just like, so much is happening. Like, the pace is really good, but it's like, this can't be the end of the episode. And you look and it's like, oh my God, I have 20 minutes left. Like, what else can you do to me in these episodes? And Michael, Lucas, and team did a phenomenal job at giving so much in these 55 minutes. Like, you are there from the beginning to the end. I love the timeline and the dates at the beginning of them. I don't know if y'all, I know for sure, like in Conclave, I talked about this in The Couple Next Door, where sometimes it's confusing when certain things are happening over like a matter of days, but the script or like the scenes don't really tell you where you are, especially when you're talking about things that discuss specific timelines. So like in Conclave, they're locked in a conclave for days or whatever, and I was confused on whether or not the audience was supposed to be disoriented with them by not knowing how long it's been, or I thought they could have added like title cards that says like day 1, day 4, or whatever. So I love how we're getting, you know, like January 1984, you know, like January 28th, 1984, January 31st, you know, like we're getting like a timeline of like how things are moving. And it also speaks to the story, because it speaks to the trajectory of Dale, which, I mean, the show is about Dale and Helen's love story. It speaks to the timeline of him being essentially a nobody, to, if you've seen any of the spoilers or anything like that in season 3, where he's like on top of the world. So not only is it pivotal to Dale's overall transformation across all 3 seasons, but we're also talking about major life events that happen in the real world. So I think that is just so smart as a production and as a decision being made for the series. Episode 2, I already told y'all, once in a lifetime. So rumors are flying around at work about Helen and Dale, because who was it? Noelene, which I love her name, it's so pretty. Noelene called Dale's place and heard Helen in the background, because Helen was like not at work, right? She needs to get her life together. And so Noelene tells Rob, who was the biggest gossip. So it's like this whole thing, right? So it's like, are you and Helen together? And Dale's like, why y'all in my fucking business? And he's genuinely curious as to why anybody would be interested in anybody else's personal life. Like, it's personal. Like, what are we doing? Why are we talking about this? Ain't nothing going on, and it's also rude. And so I love that as a man, even in his own discomfort at being ragged on by the other more traditionally masculine looking men in the office, he don't have no issues telling them to back off. At all. And at one point he genuinely asked him, like, what is the fascination? Like, why? And Tim's like, I don't know. Like, he couldn't even give an answer. He's like, I guess people just like talking about Helen. And Dale's just like, this is weird. Y'all are weird. Sure, but like, get out of my business. Well, Geoff is feeling his position slip away very fast, and his birthday party is coming up. He's been given, like, I don't know, Lindsay does a really great job at speaking around in circles. Like, you can literally go to Lindsay and be like, hey, so are the bosses gonna talk to me about that pay raise that I talked about? And Lindsay's like, yeah, they're gonna talk to you with some words. There's gonna be a meeting at 3 and I'm pretty sure they're gonna be enthusiastic and you're gonna walk away with some feelings. Like, he don't ever really like say the thing. And so he's been doing this to Geoff. So Geoff is just like, look, fuck it, I'ma announce, you know, that I'm gonna step away. Let me have some little bit of dignity or whatever. Now, behind every successful man is a cutthroat woman pulling the strings. Geoff's wife is like, sir, you think this career is just yours? No. It's my battery pack that is in your back that has kept us here for the last 30 years. So I thought you were a better man than this. And y'all, don't nothing get to an ego of a man than a woman challenging that very ego. And it's really to get what we want. We're masters at this thing. So we go to the party, and at first Dale wasn't gonna go. Helen asked him to go, and Dale's like, listen, they talking about us at work. It's really making me uncomfortable. I just feel like we should not be hanging out with each other outside of work. Like, I'm gonna go hang out with Tim and the other camera guys. And Helen was like, you sure this is not a ploy to just get you alone? Like, that's gay Tim. Like, what do you mean? And Dale's like, Tim's not gay. And she's like, sir, everybody in that office be checking out my ass except him. I know a gay man when I see him. So Dale's like, whatever, we just may be hanging out. So Dale calls Tim, and you know, he's gonna, you know, get ready to get the address, everything like that or whatever, when Tim is like, hey, everybody bailed, so you know, I hope you don't mind that it's just gonna be me and you. And Dale's like, actually, I'm gonna go to the party. So he goes and he picks up Helen, and he looks so good, and she's so radiant and excited, and they walk into the party together. How sweet. So we have a Dale that didn't even want to be seen together because of the rumors. Not necessarily that he was ashamed of him spending time with Helen, but you know, he don't want nobody in his business. Like this, it's almost, not almost, it mirrors Helen, and it mirrors women. Actually, women don't want to be seen attached to a man in the workplace because there's going to be rumors about you sleeping your way to the top and not doing anything on your own merit. Dale don't want to be seen with Helen because he wants to get to where she is and he admires her. So he doesn't want to be seen as being on her coattails. He wants to make it on his own merit. So I appreciate him wanting to protect that in a way that maybe his peers, especially during that time, would not do the same or make the same decision. So Helen is there. He's seeing Helen. You know, he saw her at her lowest at a scary point, and he's seeing her having a good time, and you know, her energy is just palpable, and he's drawn to it. And what does Dale do? Kisses her right on the dance floor. So everybody's taking pictures because Helen is like a famous newswoman. Like, everybody know Helen, but they're trying to figure out who this man is. Okay. And one of my favorite scenes, y'all know how I feel about intimacy and feels and electricity and the sparks of things. They get home, and Dale is walking different, y'all. Our shoulders are back, our hips are pushed slightly forward, our chest is pumped out, and Dale goes and sits on Helen's couch and lays his long lithe body out with that arm back on the armrest and his other arm open, saying, take me. And what does Helen do? You need to watch it because we're moving on to episode 3. Moving along to episode 3, titled The White Marquee Matinee. Okay, we're halfway through, guys. We're halfway through. Episode 3 brings us to the Lindy Chamberlain case. Now, I don't know if this is a real case in real life. Let me look this up. So the case itself was about a woman who was sent to jail because the prosecution made everybody believe that she actually killed her daughter, even though she said a dingo came and took her baby. Now, I'm not even gonna lie to y'all, I had to get past my childish giggles at a dingo. I just remember being a kid and watching like Animal Planet and all these other things, and just the sound of a dingo, and knowing that kids were calling penises dinglings. It was like I had a whole childish ass flashback. Let's see, the Lindy Chamberlain story, is it real? Okay, I think it's based on a real story. So she was sentenced to life in prison, but what ended up happening, right? She kept telling everybody, no, y'all found these overalls and you're trying to tell me that I don't know what my daughter was wearing and you put me in jail. Well, they found the jacket. While looking for another man, they found the jacket that Lindy had been saying that her daughter was wearing when she was missing. And so it blows the case wide open. Now for Geoff, he reported on this case, and the people trust him, and all the information and stuff going out there. And it's not that he was the prosecution who put her behind bars, but we know how news and media can take information and lean a certain way. There's still bias that ends up putting the thought into people's minds of whether or not this woman is guilty or not guilty in the court of public opinion. So this kind of upends Geoff a little bit. It kind of has him shaking, in his boots a little bit. But he's like, okay, boom, I'm gonna contact the lawyer who was on the case. The wife is like, we need to get on this. But another thing that we end up seeing with Geoff, though, is that a lot of things are happening fast and at the news station while he's at home, like eating breakfast or taking a shower or whatever. So we see in Geoff his need, because he knows certain things are slipping away. Geoff has an unhealthy obsession with his job. Like, you're stopping in the middle of eating, in the middle of doing your hair, in the middle of taking a shower, hell, probably in the middle of sex, because you got the news on and you're trying to hurry up and get down to the news station because I need to be at the desk. I need to be at the front of the story. And so with Geoff's storyline, you're really seeing him grasp at like water to maintain his position at the news station. Meanwhile, Lindsay knows that they're trying to give him a graceful exit. The world of news is shifting in another way, and Geoff is insistent upon, we're not going to be doing this entertainment bullshit and all this other stuff. We report real news. I was there for Nam. I was there for the Cold War. I was there for this. And he's like, this is news and this is that, and the people, and we owe it to the people. But it's like, shit, bro, like, people don't want to just hear about death and destruction all the time. And even when receiving the news, it's a lot to receive trauma, right? Even in episode 1 with the space shuttle, it was a decision to show, I think for the first time in Australian history on Australian news, at News at 6, the actual explosion, looping the footage, and oh my God, I did not see myself getting emotional about this, but looping it and feeling it in the show, everybody watching it and everybody's kind of holding their breath. It reminded me of being 12 in first period English class and seeing 9/11 happen on TV, and it was looped on the news every day, all day, to the point where even my stepmom was like, okay, we cannot have the kids just watching this, right? School was out, all these other things, like so many things are happening, and there's like a gravity of a situation where you're seeing destruction but you don't really understand. And so for Geoff, you would think that he would want to move with this, but he has a very staunch journalistic way that he is immobile on. Like, he has cemented himself in this thing, and he simply does not want to move at all. So in this episode, you really just kind of see like all of these different things. But also in this episode, I feel, it's my opinion, you newsreaders out there, my Australian audience, let me know. I feel like episode 3 marked the tone of Dale and Helen's emotional and romantic relationship. Dale is wide open for Helen. Helen is wide open for Dale. Dale knows how important her job is to her. She knows how important it is for him to continue practicing and to continue to put himself in places where he can be taken seriously as a newsreader, right? So it's really cute to see them bickering it out at work about like a work decision or a way to go with a certain thing. Him with the producer lens, her as the person in front of the camera. So I love like that push and pull, that back and forth. Even Tim and the sound guy are like, so this is how it feels when mom and dad are fighting. But it's really just a difference in professional opinion. But Dale does this sweet thing where he steals some fake flowers and he steals some teacups from the room while they're on a case. And, you know, she's writing this letter. So it was an idea that she came up with, but Dale was telling her, like, your second draft was, like, really good. I think it's perfect. She's like, no, I got to do it like this. And he's like, okay, well, we have a sunset, but you know what? I get it. I understand. You know what? Do your job. And he didn't say this in a malicious way. But as a viewer, it's like, will there always be a moment where they miss each other? Because earlier, she was pissed at Dale because it was Friday the night prior and he forgot to be creative while they were out on a case and take her out on a date. So his excuse was, you know, we were getting this story. So she's like, okay, fine. She had her feelings and he was focused on the story. So now he has his feelings and she's focused on doing something for work, right? And it's the way in which he kind of relaxes into that, like, okay, boom, I get it, cool. And she's writing it, but she's like, well, do you really think the second one is perfect? And he's like, yeah, like, it's for everything that you want to say, it's in there. And so they have a moment, but you know, she's happy about his opinion, but she's not brooding, and he's happy that she asked his opinion, and so things are well. Well, as it turns out, even though she wrote 4 drafts, she sent the second one, and the second one is the one that got them what they wanted from the Lindy Chamberlain case. And how did they celebrate? Ripping each other's clothes off. I love it. And I love it so much because Helen is such a spitfire, right? And when you look from the outside looking in, you would not put these two people together. But Helen brings out that confidence in Dale. So now that inner fire that he has about his job and being there one day is now showing itself physically in how he looks, how he speaks up even more, even just going back and forth with Helen in general, right? Would he have done this as episode 1 Dale? Absolutely not. And so then seeing that confidence come through, not only in the last episode, but in this one, so openly in the bedroom with her, you see a Dale that, while timid, knows how to move around in the bedroom. And I was quite surprised at some of the scenes, especially in the facial acting of Dale and Helen when they're waking up in the bed with one another. Like, he's not like sheepish, like, oh, sorry, like, you know, wrong hole. He's like, I did that. Like, my pants may be too big. My shirts may be ugly. But I gets down, okay, in the DMs. And I really enjoy seeing Helen be at the receiving end of this, because it's also shaping her narrative of how she views other people who may look like Dale. So there's a kindness in a way that she treats other people that Dale typically hung out with at work. So maybe they were a band of like misfits and little nerds or whatever. But how she even communicates and her nonverbals to them is a lot different now that she's with Dale, because Dale is showing her like you cannot judge a book by its cover. And so I'm just really loving that you see two people bringing out the best in one another, and they're applying changes to themselves that aren't active changes. I feel like when you actively change, and by active I mean change to conform yourself into the image of your desires, or the image of the person that you desire, that change is not going to last, because it's not what you want. So I like that we get to see Helen and Dale. Everybody notices a change in them, but they're just like, I'm just me, like what are you talking about? So to see that they're bringing about changes in them that they don't even realize that they're making, you see two people who are literally meant for each other. And I love that in the open they may seem to be the most oddest looking couple, but it's in their intimate moments, it's when they're by themselves, and this giddiness that we see in her, this girlish laughter and being excited for him and waiting on him and burning food for him and all these other things. It's just like, that's love. Like Dale is in love with Helen. Helen is in love with Dale. It's apparent, okay? Now, episode 4, Dale wants Helen to meet his mom. Dale is still a man, because where did you want her to go? His fucking job. Why would you have your girlfriend meeting your mama for the first time at your job? His thought, well, she always talk about going down to work. I just thought it would be easier. You know, we can kill two birds with one stone. And Helen is like, are you fucking... Okay, bro. Whatever. And so Dale's like, I'm sorry. I misthought. Like, he's like, fuck, like my dad. And you really see them in like this domesticated moment. That's so cute, because I think this was one of the first times through the timelines on the title cards that we see intimately where they just, you know, he was on page 1, she was on page 2. He wasn't there yet. Not a biggie. And Helen's like, cool, whatever. Sure, I can get there. I also love that Helen takes like 2 hours to do her fucking hair and makeup, and Dale just factors that into his life, because she was like, well, what time did you tell her to be at work? He was like, 4. She was like, I wouldn't even have my makeup done by then. So she just abandons dinner altogether and goes and starts getting ready. And Dale picks up where she left off, and I just thought that was so cute. Like, you get to see them kind of like complete each other in the household, even when she's having like her moment of just being a hyper feminine woman. And I just love that Dale just accepts it and doesn't try to change that about her. So in episode 3, Geoff does something that is so disgusting and so undermining, but Karma is so swift. Okay, Karma must have been on her lunch break when Geoff did what he did, because she looked up and said, oh, I'm clocking in. Okay, and Geoff has a heart attack, rightfully so. Sir, sit your ass down. All he does is try to jeopardize Helen's career behind her back, but then try to smile in her face and pretend to be understanding of the things that she has to deal with and the things that she goes through at work. So I genuinely love this. And this was also an opportunity for Lindsay to talk to, I think Evelyn is Geoff's wife's name. And now she's seeing face to face that there's a real fear of her husband's termination. And she's just like, listen, I will yank you by the balls if you think that you're going to use this to try to boot my husband out. So I don't know what you need to do, but you need to figure it out, because he will be back at the desk. So Lindsay's like, here we fucking go. Like, I'm gonna be real. Lindsay does have to put up with a lot, because any small mistake made how do I put this? He could be better. He could be better. But he leads with like, if the news at 6 were balls, he leads like, no. Okay, yeah. He leads like a vice grip that's too tight on the nuts and needs to be surgically removed. Like, that's just how Lindsay leads. But like a penis, I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know. So, okay, he does lead like that, but underneath this grip that will cause a man to pass out and continue to pass out every time he wakes up and feels this grip, he has the best interests of his people. And so it's really cool to see Lindsay. Lindsay is like Professor Snape, right? From books 1 through 6, you're like off with his head. He's a double agent. Don't trust him. He's terrible. No. And then book 7, you're just like, oh my God, he did all of those things because he loved him. Like, no, please, no, like Severus. Oh my God. Like, your heart just blooms because you realize, like, he genuinely loves everybody. And so that's why I really love Lindsay so much. It's not mean, okay? It's a lot, but it's not mean. And you know that in the way that when people have their one-on-ones with him, even though Lindsay is very much like, get this fucking shit and you better not fuck this up. If I gotta do this, I swear to fucking God, you're gonna lose your job. Like, even though he's like that, everybody still goes into the office, even if they're like people who don't necessarily like confrontation, to people like Helen and Geoff who don't give a shit about confrontation. They're still able to tell Lindsay what they feel and have like back and forth with him. And so that goes to, no matter how much he yells at them, he carves a space for them to step in and be like, you're being unfair, you're being unreasonable, I want this, if you don't do this, then I'm stepping. And Lindsay knows that he needs the people on his team. He knows that it's this team that's gonna drive them forward and make them famous as a news team. So even when he fires somebody, he takes like 30 minutes and he's like, okay, tell them I was just playing, like these was just jokes. Come back after your lunch. Matter of fact, take an extended lunch, okay? See you at 2. And that's how he is, and that's like the nature of the relationship with them. Everybody gets an opportunity to be explosive, as explosive as they want with their emotions, with their boss, knowing that once things kind of settle, they were heard by him, and he tries to go out of his way to incorporate their needs and their wants in the thing. So he'll eventually give them a chance. So to me, he's like a mean old teddy bear, you know, just grumpy, you know, just needs a hug every once in a while, okay? Now, during this time, okay, Dale is out as a producer. He's upset because he's talking to, I think it's Dennis, and he's like, when am I gonna get another opportunity to be back on his desk? I've been practicing, I've been doing this, I've tapped out as a producer. And he tells him, which I think is the thing that stays. I haven't seen season 3, I haven't seen season 2, but I think this thing that Dennis tells him is the thing that leads Dale to the eventual crash out in season 3. We need someone who doesn't get the channel changed on them. Figure out a way to do that. A very harsh critique, not too harsh, but it brings Dale down a little bit. He's like, fuck, like, damn, people turn the channel on me, like, that's crazy. So he goes out, does this stupid ass job, and he's pissy, and people haven't really seen Dale pissy at work. So Rob is like, you know what, I'm not about to take this, I'm finna get some food and head back to the news station. So Tim is like, I'm about to go out to the car or whatever. The sound guy comes in, he's like, where's Tim? And Dale's like, I thought he was with you, because Dale gave this camera guy, the sound guy, more money to put into the meter when shit just explodes everywhere, okay? There's some bombings that's happening. in a car near a police station. There's so many things going on and screaming and all this other stuff. Dale is running down the street because where the fuck is Tim? Okay. Rob is back at the news station and everybody's like, all these things and stuff are going off and they're like, where's the crew? Dennis is like, where's the crew? He was like, they had the thing. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, there's a bomb, da da da. So they're all freaking out because they're just like, oh my God, we can't get a crew down there. The roads are blocked. There's all these different things. Dale finds Tim. They got the sound guy and they're like, we need to get out of here. And Dale's like, listen, let's just set up right here. There's nobody here but the only ones here and nobody knows what's going on. So Dale just commands the whole scene, even with another explosion going off right behind him. At this juncture, I'm like super excited because I'm just like, it takes a lot of courage. And I think y'all know this, but let me just explain. Words mean things. Bravery is being able to do something without fear. Courage is being able to do something with fear present. Dale is courageous as fuck because they are all scared. But the way that he's moving and that energy is palpable. And he's not even thinking about like, yeah, he said like we're the only ones here. But his thought was no one knows what's going on and we need to let them know. So Tim holds on to that. The sound guy holds on to that. And they're like, okay, fuck it. We're going live. So they're recording. They're getting everything. He's getting shots of the people. He's getting shots of the explosion. And he's calm as fuck. Calm. So they get through the one tape. They're like, we need to hurry up and get this tape back to the station so they know that we're here, all these other things. So they're boom, going through, setting up stuff, going through everything, and they're just there. So they end up getting the tape back to the facility, and they're like, fucking Dale is on this tape. Like, okay, whatever. We ain't got nobody out there. They were finally able to get another crew out at the hospital as well. So Robbie went with Noelene and another crew. So at this point, it's just news at 6 on the scene of the crime and at the hospital interviewing people who were there and witnessing it as well. So they pop in Dale's tape and everybody's sitting in that room and they're like, fucking Dale. And Helen couldn't be more proud. So they got the footage from Dale, they got the footage from Rob, and Geoff is in the hospital. So Helen is at the desk by herself. So it just so happened during this tragedy, everybody was where they needed to be. And Helen has all the things. And so while they're there, they're like, okay, we need to go live with Dale. And they're not getting any of the camera footage. It's black. They're like, we got 30 seconds. And so what I love is just the rush of like, you got 20 seconds, you got 10 seconds. Oh my God, hurry up the thing. And then things are like crashing and burning and you get this adrenaline rush. And Tim sets up the camera and he's like, Dale, do not fucking move. And so he gets in the car to get the radio signal, and he's just driving, and the sound guy is like, we got picture. And it was right at 3 seconds left when Helen sent it over to Dale live and doing all these other things. And then what happens there? I think, was Geoff here? Somebody was there. I think it was somebody was there. And so now they're talking to Dale and they're asking him, how did he feel and what was it like and all these other things. And Dale is being vulnerable, but he's being calm under pressure. And Helen asks, are you okay? And she does it in her news voice, but baby, she's checking on her man. Is my man okay? And he says, I'm a little shaken up, but I'm okay. And it's just like, oh my God, they get to like say their love like on TV and he's doing great and she's watching him and it's this whole thing. And this is like the thing that transforms everybody's image of Dale. He is not the front breed producer that they thought, and he is literally proving that he can work in life and death situations under pressures that they cannot fathom at this point. And I love that. Okay, this is also the episode where Helen and Dale tell each other that they love each other for the first time when Dale gets home. Unfortunately, it's marred with a little bit of guilt from Dale because and all of the stress and all of the chaos and the adrenaline and everything, Dale and Tim shared a kiss during their lockdown. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? I just love that we got that from Jennifer Lawrence. It's my favorite thing and my favorite way to say what do you mean these days. Okay. In episode 5, there is a whole shitstorm at the news station, and it's Noelene's fault. Noelene fucked up really bad about some AIDS propaganda. So here we are. AIDS. Helen has been trying to push an AIDS story about this woman who got a blood transfusion, and she ended up getting AIDS, but she didn't know, and passed it down to her 2 kids. She's been trying to push the story since the beginning. Lindsay's like, don't nobody want to hear about no fucking AIDS, like it's depressing. But we end up getting the story, and Dale gets it. Helen's like, I think it'll do good for you on the heels of what you just did in the last episode. And he gets the story, but the lady is kind of like, yeah, if these gay men go into the blood banks and pumping their AIDS gay blood into the system, and now I have it and all these other things. And Dale is very uncomfortable. Tim is uncomfortable. It's like not a secret that Tim is gay. And they go with the story, but Lindsay's like, no, we don't want to do that. Oh, but she said this like propaganda thing, we could probably run with that. And Dale's like, I don't want to fucking do that shit. And then Noelene's is like, well, there was this thing that did kind of confirm this in the US. So they're like, cool, bet, we'll run this quote and then we'll put that image in. Turns out that quote was a lie made up to get people to continue to drive the narrative to hate people with AIDS. Y'all, insane. I was watching this episode and I just couldn't help but think of Freddie Mercury. I couldn't help but just think of like that time and that Live AIDS event. And just, I don't know, as a member of the community, even before I knew, I think I always knew, but even before I openly acknowledged to myself, I didn't really have no coming out story. It was nothing. Like, I just remember talking to my parents one day about this girl, and I was just like, oh yeah, this girl that I'm seeing, that was just it. There was no questions. There was no, oh my God. But I've always, like, even as a kid, like, one of my favorite movies to watch was To Wong Foo. Like, I loved seeing men be able to express themselves and dress up and put on makeup and lipstick and heels, and then, you know, the next day they're going to do whatever, because I just felt like even as a young girl, I knew that women were allowed freedoms of expression in a way that men were not. And growing up in a family where the F word was pushed around a lot on boys, and, you know, 4-year-olds getting yelled at, don't you be fucking playing with those dolls, those are girl toys, you're not about to grow up and be no gay ass little da da da, I'll beat that shit out of you. Like, I heard these things aimed at men, boys in my family, boys who some grew up and are gay, some never thought about being gay, they were just kids, right? And having people in my family who did get AIDS between the 80s and the 90s, and still seeing well in the 90s that same don't drink after them, don't touch them, don't do this, don't do that, ill and stuff like that. I saw my first person with full-blown AIDS with all of like the symptoms and the secondary sicknesses that were causing the AIDS to advance even further. I saw that. I maybe was like 9. I was young. And even at that age, walking up to that person and asking, you know, can I touch you? And they ended up crying. Like, they were just, I'll never forget this moment. And they were crying because of what they looked like, and people knowing that they had AIDS, adults around them, people who were supposed to be their friends, people who were supposed to be their family, turning their backs on them, and like me, a kid, asking, you know, can I touch you? And I just remember tracing their face and holding their hand. I just remember being unafraid, you know? And so this episode really like brought out a lot for me. Because in this episode, Helen went to go interview somebody with AIDS, and the way that people were like, they're coming into the news, and oh my God, they touched it, and all these things, and yeah, just, and people are still awful. Like, people are disgusting, and knowing that people at that age, in their 30s and their 20s and their 40s, during, you know, between 1980 and like 1998, are still alive this day. I wonder if they look back. I wonder if older people who watched the Newsreader look back on this episode and saw their own disgust reflected in themselves in the episode. Like, I genuinely was watching this episode and I was like, I hope y'all are alive to see how truly nasty of a person that you are. Yeah. And in this episode, we end up confronting Dale's past a little bit with Helen, because one of the people that she interviewed, the partner of the person with AIDS, was somebody that Dale went to school with. And Helen was like, what is going on? Because you said that he was a contact. And Dale begins to tell her the story about them in high school and how his involvement with this boy turned into a whole thing where the boy's family was like, Dale assaulted him, and they called the police and everything. And she asked him, you know, has it happened since? And Dale doesn't say anything, and she said, has it been since we've been together? And he says yes. And she asks with who, and he says Tim, and it just turns into this whole thing. He doesn't even get to talk to her. So moving into episode 6. Episode 6 is very much marred by Helen's reaction to Dale. She's very unprofessional at work. And it sucks because they're at a point where they're out as a couple. Like, we've already done a magazine spread and everything. And Lindsay's like, we want them to work together all the time. We're going to do this all the time. We're going to do this. Dale and Helen and Dale. And she's just like, fuck on the inside, you know? And Dale's like, can we please talk? Like, can we please have a conversation? And I thought this was very, I don't want to say hypocritical of Helen, but I found it very interesting that Helen was able to be sympathetic to the story of the mom. She was able to be very sympathetic to the couple, the one with AIDS and the one without, Dale's childhood buddy, I guess, friend. They were friends. And yet she didn't even give Dale the opportunity to really say what happened with Tim, nor did she probe into the rest of the story of what happened to Dale and why he would want to hide this, not only from other people, but also from himself. And so I just felt like she gave everybody around him what she should have given him in the initial reaction. But Dale is such a sweetheart. He's always looking for ways to talk to her and to explain. And at one point, he does bring up this being unfair. Like, girl, he found out that your daddy is dying and you don't even want to go see him. He never said anything. He didn't burden you about it or any of those things. And he could have. Because Helen, through talking to his mom, found out that Dale's father died. And his own mother didn't stay a mother. He had to parent his own parents. So he lost 2 parents during a critical time. So in a space where he could have been like, you need to go see him, you need to set all this aside, he didn't. He let her do that. He found you on the floor, girl, half dead. Didn't judge you. Didn't do any of those things. Let you know that when you're ready to tell him. And in a space where the world is anti-gay, this is how you treat the man that you said I love you to. Child, she was on my damn nerves. I'm not even gonna hold y'all. But during this, Chernobyl happens in this episode. And during all of this, Dale is still being iced out by Helen. He don't really have anybody. And, you know, him and Tim get the opportunity to talk again. And, you know, Dale talks to Tim genuinely because they were like a fun crew. They worked really good together. And this whole thing was just making everything awkward at work. Helen was being a bitch to Dale, a bitch to Tim. And Dale didn't know. He was being kind of a dick to Tim, but he didn't really want to because he's like, I don't know what to do. And Dale opens up to Tim about the truth of what happened, and it is so heartbreaking. It wasn't just police or whatever. The boy's dad caught Dale and him having sex. And Dale, the boy's dad, not Dale's dad, the boy's dad said that Dale sexually assaulted his son. Had the police come to the school to arrest Dale in front of everybody while shouting obscenities and calling him a rapist and a pervert in front of the school kids, the faculty. They actually took him down and booked him in the system as a young teen, and he was there, I believe, overnight. He had to change schools, he had to change churches, and that's why his mom hates that boy and his family to this day. And Tim is like, holy shit. And it's a lot. But Dale, he's like, I've been trying so hard to change that and to hide that, and all of this is bringing this back to the forefront. But something that I really love in this episode is that after the whole Chernobyl thing and Helen finally creating a space for Dale to talk, because at this juncture, Lindsay's like, Geoff, you're done. Dale will be on the desk of Helen. So Dale goes and finds Helen, and he's like, they want us on the newsreader together. Can we talk? And so Dale tells her. So she finally asks the things that she needs to be asking. And Dale tells her, and oh my God, Sam's emotional. I cried, oh my God. Because, we'll get into it later. I'm almost done. But she asks him, you know, do you like men? And he's like, every time I think I'm done, I'm not. And it won't go away. But neither will my feelings for you. Like, I love you. Like, these things exist in me together. And she tells him, I love you just the way you are. Cues Bruno Mars. So there's that. Season 1 of The Newsreader. Oh my God, I have many thoughts. So let me just go in order. Okay. First things first, I love Dale's relationship to his mom and how it contrasts to Helen's relationship with her whole family. Okay. During her conversation with Dale, when he opened up, she opened up too about how her family shipped her away to a mental institution as a teenager and then abandoned her there. And so they both now have a full understanding of her anxieties, why she takes pills, why he found her the way that he did, and why she's not going to see her dad regardless of the fact that he's dying. And so I just love that at the end of season 1, this is why I said at the end of season 1, if it was a mini series or a limited series, they could have ended it right here. It was phenomenal. Michael Lucas, phenomenal. The chaos in producing news. So one of my jobs before I'm now back into my career field now, just getting everything ready for ceremonies and all the things that you have to go to transform a person from like day 0 to like day 7 weeks, and watching it all go and all the things go to shit and the uniform thing then fell off or somebody passed out and you got to step in and do all this other stuff. I love the chaos of the show. And I think about like, I want more shows that are like shows of the behind the scenes of producing this thing that we as an audience take for granted on how hard and how chaotic it is for it to be produced. So like news. I was telling my fiance like, damn, I thought news was just like continuous or whatever. But to watch them be like, today we will be talking about the koala bear who ripped off the ear of a young mother and her 2 babies. Tonight at 6. Hey, no, you didn't hit the cues. Roll it back in 10. Today, we will be talking about like over and over and over and over and over. And then once you get like a cut, it's like, all right, 5 seconds. Hurry up, move. Hurry up, fix his makeup. All right, boom, go. All right, 20 seconds. Is my hair okay? Like, I love the chaos of that. And I think the closest thing that we have now is like the bear. And a little bit of Abbott Elementary, like you get to see into what the food people go through to get you your order while y'all over there fighting at the damn Burger King desk when you got real people in the back trying to just do their job. The same thing with Abbott Elementary and how they show what teachers have to go through. So I would definitely love more shows about like the behind the scenes of things that may seem simple, but in reality, in order to produce it for the consumer to get like a perfect package, show like the chaos. We were getting that in How to Die Alone, which was showing kind of like the behind the scenes of the airport stuff, but Hulu decided to be a C word. And so hopefully Natasha Rothwell can get this shopped somewhere else so that we can get this back. But yeah, I would love like a show about like baggage claims or like the lost and found at like a location or something. I don't know. Give me something. But I really love the chaos of what that is. And like I said, I learned so much about even like the hierarchy in the way that people who work in news and in journalism and in media want to go like their routes and the trajectory of how to get there. So I thought this was really interesting. And Sam said on the Installation podcast, so one of the fan questions was like, has this changed the way that you consume news and consume media? And Sam was like, it doesn't necessarily change the way that I consume media per se, but I am looking at the production of it, like, oh, the lighting or the fan or the makeup or the hair and stuff like that, because his character was the behind the scenes of like all the things and the makings of it. Is the cue card moving fast enough? Is it moving too slow? Did the teleprompter break? Did this tape end up getting jacked up and now we gotta hurry up and splice it into something else? And so I can definitely see how filming a show like this wouldn't change how you got your news. It's gonna make you more critical of the way that the news is given to you, because you're constantly thinking about what went wrong and what did they do to fix this to make this story go right. So definitely understand that, because again, in my previous job, every time I watched ceremonies, I was never consuming the ceremony in like, oh my God, that was really nice. No, I'm looking at this step, I'm looking at this pivot, I'm looking at this hands, I'm looking at this, I'm like criticizing all the other pieces, and I can see where something was messed up or something happened that shouldn't have, where the average viewer would never notice that anything went wrong. So definitely understand that. What else? Okay, the acting. Anna's acting. Oh! She has these moments where she's like, and I'm Helen, bringing to you tonight, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like a cut, and she has like 20 seconds, and she's like breaking down, and she's crying, and she's trying to get it together and get it together. And everybody's like, is she gonna be, what the hell is going on? Helen, we need you back in 5. Thank you, Chad. With blah, 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 blah. Cut. All right, 10 seconds. Like, she is like having a fucking meltdown. But every time she goes up, I think it was Dennis who said, she is amazing. I don't know how she does it. Like, she is so good. Like, she always pulls it together in front of the camera. But you really get to see not only the stuff that she deals with that comes out of nowhere. Like, in some of these episodes, there's seemingly no reason for these things to be happening. But at the same time, her being a woman at this time, at this news station, knowing that the person that's sitting next to her that's smiling in her face is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and having to be perfect, the weight of that perfection on top of her dad is dying, that's probably underneath there. I don't know. Maybe we'll explore this in season 2. So the weight of your dad dying, and the reason you hate him in the first place is because of how he treated your own mental health and your own behaviors, and treated you like you were a pariah in your own life, and a pariah in your own skin, and still having to pull it all together. Anna's acting with this and just flipping emotionally is so powerful. Sam's acting, I cannot say this man's name without blushing, and I hate it. It's like Pavlov's response. I've been trying to control it. Can't. Oh God. Oh my God. So, I already kind of said this at the beginning, but I'm going to say this here. You're hearing it here. You're hearing it now. You're hearing it at So There's That Podcast by Givenchy. Sam Reid is arguably the best physical actor of the 21st century and of our time, and active actors right now, today. Sam Reid is also one of the greatest actors to ever emerge from the 21st century. Period. I don't care about awards. I don't care about nobody acknowledging him or anything like that. Ain't nobody out acting Sam Reid. I promise you. The things that he does in his face and his body, his vocal inflections and the peaks, the way he's able to isolate every muscle on his face to portray contrasting emotions, the way he's able to pull them all together to all be on one accord. I sent his crash out scene to my fiance, and she said he's like Jim Carrey. He's a handsome man who's unafraid to get ugly on camera, and he's willing to contort his face and his body to embody every emotional beat and every word within a scene. And I could not have said it better myself. He doesn't care to be ugly. And I was telling her and anybody who listens about I feel the way I feel watching Sam, and the awe that I feel watching Sam is the same thing that I felt watching Viola Davis's rise from the stage to where she is now. She is not afraid to get ugly. She is not afraid to go there. and she puts everything in a thing. It's why in the movie Doubt, she had 7 minutes. In a movie with Meryl Streep, who won an Academy for her own portrayal, 7 minutes of Viola Davis, and everybody said, who the fuck is that? 7 minutes. And I think that movie was like 2 hours long. 7 minutes. And to see it in real time, I am so proud and so lucky that I got to see in real time the rise of someone like Viola Davis. And I feel that same excitement and that same stirring in my soul watching Sam Reid. It is a feeling that I wish I could describe better, but it is uncontained in me, and it is wild, and I'm just like, wow. It's like watching Leonardo DiCaprio in a way as well. But I think the thing that tips Sam for me is, like my fiance said about Jim Carrey, they're not afraid to get ugly. And when you can get ugly, nothing else matters. I already talked about the premise of behind the scene type shows. Okay, Dale's sexuality. So Sam Reid, thank you for being our unintentional or maybe intentional bisexual princess. I don't know about your sexual preferences. I honestly don't care. That is your business. I respect it wholeheartedly, but I do love that you lean into these roles and you lean into the fact that you don't care if people think that you are or people think that you aren't. The bisexual man. I feel like Sam is carrying the bisexual man on his back right now. And it's not to erase any other shows that tried their best to show male fluidity in sexuality. But unfortunately, and maybe Sam knows this, unfortunately, bisexual men are more easily digested when they're white and when they are conventionally attractive. I see all the stuff that y'all say about Sam. I see all the things about Lestat. I see all the things about Dale and all these other things. And it's just like, oh, it's Sam, our Princess Diana, and all these other things, right? And just like loving and really leaning into, even women, because I'm about to get on y'all, leaning into how they would love to be sandwiched between two men, or they would love, you know, Lestat can wreck them, Dale can do whatever to them, and, you know, put me between Dale and Tim, put me between Lestat and Louis and Daniel and da da da, right? Because you find him attractive and because he's white. Okay, this same thing is not afforded to men of color at all. I already talked a little bit about what I heard firsthand in my own community, in my own home, not about my siblings, but I didn't, how do I put this? Fuck it. Broken home. I've lived in a few homes with different family members. The toxic man, okay? And even growing up and listening to aunts and cousins and just being an adult listening to friends, no, ain't no bisexual man. You either gay or you straight. But women are allowed to, you know, I'm not gonna get as vulgar as I want to. But women are allowed to experiment and then still get to say, oh, well, I'm straight. Even though you constantly going over to Baby T's house nightly to get the box opened, okay? So it's like you get to see this, and I love that Dale at the end of season 1 was like, I have these feelings and I also have these feelings for you, and Helen saying, I'm gonna accept you as you are. So I love that Sam, again, whether it's intentional or whether it's unintentional, I love that he's allowing the bisexual man to just simply be a bisexual man. And I love that the writers are leaning to this too, because Sam himself, if you just watch interviews, he don't play about no bigotry of no kind, no phobias, no nothing, right? Like you got a fear of maybe like spiders, okay, a fear of like homosexuality, or any type of sexuality fear and all this other thing. Like he don't rock with that at all. And so I wouldn't be surprised if writers wrote to his own personality for things, and I'm definitely sure that he's bringing his own personal feelings and emotions about certain beats in a story so that it can be full. And all I wish is for other bisexual stories for men to be told, especially through a masculine lens. Okay, because the only masculinity, like homosexuality, that we get to see is through brutality, right? I'm thinking of stuff like Spartacus. I'm thinking of shows like Oz, where it comes off as brutal because it's internalized homophobia. And you call yourself still straight because you're not the one taking it, but you're the one giving it. Or it comes off as hyper femininity, where it's a guy who is super feminine and super girly and wanting, towing the lines of, does he want to be a woman or does he not? And he's still not finding love. He's just some straight woman's best gay sidekick. And we never get the story of the man who just simply look regular and like men and like women. Okay, he ain't maybe gotta work out. He don't gotta be the buffest. He don't have to be the most feminine. He just is a man, and he exists like the rest of the most of the male population, and he's allowed to do that. And the storyline isn't centered around shame and isn't centered around trying to hide that or any type of homophobia, whether it's externalized or internalized. So I love that Sam is in these roles, and the dualities of Dale and Lestat, but they're still telling the same story, especially with a character like Louis, now with Jacob Anderson jumping into that and talking about his own experiences of having to confront his own feelings and things that he thought he would never have to confront again through this character. And so getting more of that with Asian men, black men, I don't know, African men, pick any country. Even with Asia, I'm also including places in like Singapore, India, stuff. I think they're in the same spot. Sorry, I'm geographically challenged. But just getting more of that. I want more of that. I'm always going to advocate for that. I don't know when I started advocating for the bisexual man. It's been some years. But yeah, I believe that men should be allowed the same liberties that society gives women. And it's literally like, fuck what y'all say. And women, sometimes you drive this narrative because literally, my last point on this, because the AIDS story, it's about these men and they're secretly sleeping with men and then they're infecting their wives and their girlfriends and all these other things. Well, Sharon, Katrina, if you offered a safe space in your relationship for this person to simply tell you that they like men as well, and then you received it and actually listened to them without prejudice, without bigotry, and without homophobia, then they wouldn't have to sneak and go do these things. Do you realize that your own hatred created the down low man? Like, what aren't you getting? What aren't you getting? You created it. And then, especially in the era of the show, then you blame your hate for driving them into the secrecy and then saying now they're the cause of these things through your own ignorance. Make it make sense, bruh. Make it make sense. Okay, I'm over it. Let's see. Yeah, closing it out on a great note. I love how the season really just ended on just honest communication, an open heart, an open mind, and acceptance. To quote the young Willow Smith on her album Empathogen, one of her songs that was nominated for Best Production for a Grammy, Big Feelings. The end of the song, I actually used Big Feelings on my first Lestat fan video edit. And the end of it is acceptance is the key. Acceptance gives you wings. If you just accept who people are, there is a freedom even within yourself to live your own truths. You don't have to live the truth that they're living, but accepting others for who they are will empower you to live as freely as who you are. It will encourage you. It will embolden you. So even if you're not gay, accepting somebody else as gay you may be somebody who, I don't know, pick whatever weird thing that you're hiding from your own friends and your own families that's not rooted in sexuality, but you feel would be shameful. Accepting other people and watching them live out loud will allow you to live out loud. And I think we just need more of that. And I love that this is the beat that we ended on in season 1 of the Newsreader. So with that, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave comments in the comments box below. I really would love, especially the US audience, to go watch the show and tell me what you think. When I find a way to watch season, okay, I already kind of have a way to watch season 3 already. When I find a way to watch season 2, I will come back for a season 2 review. And when I finish season 3, I will come back for a season 3 review. Hopefully I'm done before San Diego Comic-Con this summer. What else? Anything else I got going on? No. Watch the Newsreader, guys. And with that, I will catch y'all in the next episode.